Hi, I'm Laura and welcome back to the Tarot Genie for this week's lesson in the cards of the Tarot, continuing with the Mage Arcana. And today we're going to talk about the Wheel of Fortune number 10. Now before I get into the details of this particular image, I want to point out that it's number 10, which is significant numerologically. 10 in the Tarot, well, the number 10 represents the completion of a cycle. It also can represent the beginning of a new cycle because 10, when you add it up, the 1 and the 0 equals a 1. So it's an interesting card numerologically. And for your information, whether you want to hear it or not, I actually have 3 cards that correspond to my birth date, and the Wheel of Fortune is one of them. I have the Magician card, I have the Wheel of Fortune, and I have the Sun card, number 19, which 19 adds up to 10. So you have 1, 10, and 1 and a 9 equals 10, and it all breaks back down to a 1. So I'm one of the few birth dates that actually has 3 cards associated within the tarot. Now, one of the core meanings of this dramatic image, if you can see it there, I'm trying to get rid of the glare, is that you see a lot of kind of activity going on here. But we have first, we've got this wheel, and it looks like a mandala, and it is. It's kind of like the mandala of the tarot. Let's see here, and we've got Hebrew lettering in here, but there's also there's Hebrew letters, but we also can see T-A-R-O, and kind of almost spells out the word tarot. But if you go counterclockwise, it's like Torah, which is what's on the scripture, or that scroll that's in the High Priestess, if you recall that from a number of weeks ago. So we've got that, the Hebrew letters. This represents the cycles of life, the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs. Also, we've got a Sphinx creature, if you notice right here. I'm trying to get rid of this glare all the time. There we go, see the Sphinx. And the Sphinx, being a mysterious creature, represents, in my view, I interpret it as the mystery of life. And that Sphinx is also holding a sword, suggesting kind of a strong energy, strong force, strong power associated with that, and dealing with communications. And what's also I find fascinating, which no one has mentioned this in any of my particular reference books on the tarot. I mean, they mention that all these creatures have books in them. We've got the angel, we've got this griffin, we've got the ram and the lion, and they're all reading books. Why? I mean, no one mentions that other than saying they're books. I guess I feel it may represent knowledge about life, knowledge about the cycles of life, knowledge about these different creatures that represent what they're kind of Christian symbols. I mean, we've got the angel, etc. And we also have here that snake representing temptations, the temptations of life. And then we have this creature that almost looks a little bit devilish and impish. And what is that? I always forget the name here. I have to look it up. I apologize for my notes. But he represents, he's an Anubis, and he's the god of the afterlife. But he looks to me almost like a devilish creature. But what's most, and we've got all these billowing clouds, kind of suggesting the universal elements and universal energies of life. But when the Wheel of Fortune comes up, typically it signifies a change of events, a turn of events, karma coming to play, the ups and downs of life, the cycles of life. And some good songs that I associate with this card are, once again, dating myself, can't help it. I am a creature of my generation. Cyndi Lauper's song, Time After Time, which I always love that song, Time After Time. And I think the other song, Turn and Turn, I'm not sure if that's the actual name, I'll look it up, but it's a song by Tina Turner. I believe that's the song, so I have to make sure if I've got that correct. But Time After Time and something turning, and then there was another song that Steve Miller Band, and I'll have to look that one up, that kind of goes along with the Wheel of Fortune. But what's most important here is that it's representing, again, the cycles of life, the ebbs and flow. It's, number 10 in the major arcana. So it's an ending and a beginning. So that, of course, is the cycle of life, birth and death. An infant and someone who has reached the end of their life. And a good affirmation is, I trust the rhythms and cycles of life, because you have to trust the rhythms and cycles of life. I mean, there's some things that are beyond our control. Basically, our consciousness is the best, having a high vibration, having a consciousness that sees things from the highest perspective is the most empowering type of consciousness to have. But we can't control all of life, but we can only control, as they say ad nauseum, our reactions to life. And so if we can go with the flow as best we can and channel our energies in the most positive and most empowering framework, we're going to be more fulfilled in life. Now, if the Wheel of Fortune appears reversed, this can suggest a dramatic change of events, a dramatic change in fortune. It could suggest misfortune. It could suggest things are going downhill for a while. It's hard to say. It really depends on where the card appears in the spread and what that position represents. Because I do disagree with tarot readers who just automatically assume, okay, if it's upright, it's the positive interpretation. If it's reversed, it's a negative. It really depends on the position within a spread and what that position represents. And let me just see if there's any other key things that I'd like to share with you about this card. But yes, it does deal with evolution. There are certain inside the circle, the mandala, are these alchemical symbols. I'm not well versed in them, but I understand this represents water. One of them represents salt. So I will put those down in the show notes. It is, overall, is just a good representation of the cycles of life, of what's happening. So it appears in a reading, it's suggesting there's going to be, change, or something's coming to fruition, or something's coming to an end, or a new beginning. A new beginning may be on its way. I hope this reading has been helpful for you, or that this reading, this interpretation, this explanation has been helpful for you. Always do, though, come up with your own intuitive interpretations as you become more and more familiar with the tarot cards. And speaking of becoming more familiar with the tarot cards, one book that I've started reading that I think is good for the beginner, also good for the person who's well versed in the tarot, but it is called Tarot, No Questions Asked, Mastering the Art of Intuitive Reading by Theresa Reed. And I'm excited to share, of course I shouldn't jump the gun, but the plan is, at least for the moment, Theresa has agreed to sometime come on here on this channel with me to talk about this book, to talk about her other books, and to talk about her career. She has been doing tarot reading professionally, I believe, for over 30 years. So she's really a master of the tarot, and she's become a prolific writer. She's been pumping out books the past few years, including the tarot coloring book, which I recommended at the beginning of these lessons. So look for that. Hopefully that'll be taking place in November. I've got to figure out, I'm not a tech savvy person, and I've got to figure out how to do the split screens, when we talk and collaborate in this, when I interview her, how I'm going to handle that. I don't know yet how to do that. Everything I learn, I have to do one thing at a time. It's gradual, because I'm not the most tech savvy person on the planet. Not the worst, but definitely not the most. So I hope this explanation of the Wheel of Fortune has been helpful for you. Look for the information about the songs and this book in the show notes. And until next time, remember, illumine your mind, inspire your life with the tarot.